My name is Tara and I am a fabric addict.
Hello my lovelies, I hope you've had the most fabulous week. Spring is most definitely springing and it's got me all excited about things that I could be making for this lovely, energizing time of the year. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my spring sewing plans with you.
On my sewing plans list is this coat, something like it. I can't remember who makes these. I think it's a label called Saks Potts, but my inspiration is Dot Cotton from EastEnders. Not that I watch EastEnders, but she is a style icon. I've got this pattern from Burda. Cut it all out of this PVC from my lovely friend Nikki's fabric shop, Missy Mop fabrics, but I didn't have enough to cut out the tie belt. So then I went and had a look to see if I could buy a belt and just use a belt. And I messaged Missy Mop Fabrics and asked if she had any more of this, and luckily she does. She has a pop-up today, so I'm going to take you along and we're going to look at some fabrics for spring sewing plans.
Missy Mop has a great online store, but I love it when she does these pop-ups because she just has the most amazing amount of fabric, far more in real life than she actually has loaded onto her site. And I was just in love with so many fabrics. I literally could have come home with almost everything because she has such great taste. I really loved this sort of daisy print on the right hand bottom corner, which was a cotton, but I didn't buy this one. And there were loads of really good vintage looking viscoses. I did buy a couple of things and I will show you those. I'm especially on the lookout for a black base with blush pink polka dots. And I was so excited when I saw this, but actually it was a lot more navy than black. So I'm still on the hunt for that one. But these were very beautiful too. So I had a lovely time at Missy Mop's pop-up fabric event and I got the PVC to carry on working on my coat, which to be honest, by the time I finish, it's probably going to be summer. There are a couple of ways that I'm planning my spring makes this time, or early spring makes, because the weather is still quite wintry, to be honest. First thing I'm doing is I'm thinking about what I've been really enjoying wearing and what I've worn the most, and whether it would be worth making up other versions in other fabrics. The answer to that is a big yes. The other thing that I'm taking note of is that when I get dressed and I'm looking through all the clothes on my rail, what are the gaps? What are the things that I'm thinking, oh, I wish I had that, or I'd really like to wear that today? So those are kind of the two main things that I'm looking at. I also have a spring Pinterest board. So I have a lot of ideas and I'm not necessarily gonna fulfill all of these, but this is where I am thinking, because we all get distracted, don't we, by lovely shiny new ideas. And most of these fabrics I may have shown you before because I've got a lot of fabric in my stash, and you may or may not know that I am in the process of setting up a dedicated sewing room, and that's very exciting, and it means that I can get really organised because I've been so disorganised, which has an effect on my productivity. So one of the things that I have really loved wearing, and it doesn't matter what time of year it is the adapted blouse that I have done from this Simplicity 8447. I wear it all the time. I've got a short sleeve version with a high puff, which I absolutely love, and I have made the long sleeve version as well quite recently, just a plain white one, which I will link the video for that. So I found this remnant. It's a viscose, really pretty, sort of vintagey peachy flowers, and green on an ivory background, which is just perfect. Just want to like cuddle this. It's really beautiful fabric. There's 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters here. So what I'm going to do is another one of those blouses, but I'm going to add quite a lot of fabulosity into the sleeve, and I'll be showing you in a video how I fabulosity those sleeves using the sleeve pattern that's already in the doodah. I know it makes sense, I'm sure. So that's the first thing, because I do
know that I'm really feeling sort of shirts and skirts, separates, and dresses. I'm not really feeling trousers, so there are no trousers this time. And then I also have this Liberty print, which I showed you before. I've had it for ages. I bought this to do something else, but that something else has kind of developed into something that this is no longer relevant for. So I'm going to do a short sleeve version of that with the high puff. Is it the high puff? And so those are two lovely blouses for my wardrobe, which I know I'm going to be wearing a huge amount. Something that I keep thinking I really need in my wardrobe is a 1940s inspired shirt dress. So what I'm going to do, and I can do this as a video as well if you would like, again using good old 8447, must be my most used pattern now these days, that like a bought pattern, because most of my patterns I draft myself. What I'm going to do is use the blouse and develop that into my dream shirt dress. And I have this fabric, which is a lovely crepe, viscose crepe, and it feels very vintagey. Nikki at Missy Mop is so good at finding fabrics that have that real authentic vintage feel. She's got lots of other stuff as well, and lots of actual vintage pieces. I'm not sponsored by her, I just really like her and her fabric choices, and even if she wasn't my friend, I would be singing her praises or the shop's praises to the sky. I'm gonna do a lovely like puff sleeve shirt dress with this, with like a self-tie belt, and if I can find some little red heart-shaped buttons, that would be really lovely. I also have this vintage fabric from the 30s, maybe the 40s. It's very narrow because it's vintage, but it says that it's 160 inches long. I don't work in inches, I work in centimetres, but inches can sometimes work. And it's only 36 inches wide, but I thought that would make a really lovely shirt dress and look very vintage, because that's really what I'm wanting to achieve at the moment. I'm wanting to work on very vintage projects, so whether they're patterns that I draft myself and in fabrics that are vintage or replicating vintage, I just really want to get a wardrobe of lovely, almost true vintage, or looks like true vintage, that is very fresh and feminine and lovely, because that's how I want to feel. Of course, on cue, when one is filming, someone decides to build a wall, do a guided tour, rev up their motor, or put a radio on really loudly. So there is lots of background noise, I think, but remember, my ears aren't bionic yet, so I don't know. If you can hear that, just try and ignore it. The next couple of things that I am wanting to make that are on my spring plans are both accessories. So the first, I have been wearing non-stop my vintage Tassel Beret, which is a knitting pattern, and I want to make a fabric beret, not a felt one, but just out of all these bits of fabrics that I've got sort of sitting there. I found this roll of velvet in my local sort of, it's a funny sort of kind of, I call it a toot store. So all the stuff, you know, there's everything in there. Sort of like what a Woolworths would have been. We don't have Woolworths here anymore, unfortunately. So it's like a roll of velvet. It was £5, and there's 36 times 200 centimetres, so 2 meters here, and it's a lovely vintagey pink and ASMR. I thought that was really beautiful and would go really nicely with the shirt dress. It's a sort of similar pinky shade. While I'm planning my spring sewing plans, one of the things that I am thinking about is sort of whole cohesive outfits, and the accessories and the jewellery as well as the item of clothing, so that because I know, thinking back about my favourite outfits and the things that I've worn the most, they're you know, I'm sort of replicating those, and it's when I put an outfit together, and that might be, you know, knitting the the jumper and the beret that match, and then making the skirt or the trousers with a blouse that matches, that outfit will be worn a lot more than just random items. The other accessory is from this book, Making Vintage Bags, which one of my lovely students, Lorraine, lent me, and there's loads of good stuff in here. And I saw this, the Lucille, a sort of a 1920s mini evening bag, and I saw that it has a bangle as the handle, and then I suddenly realised that I have 2 bangles which I ordered from, can't remember, but I ordered the wrong size, so they're too big. And I love these colours. What a brilliant idea when you go out and you're disco dancing. You've got like a little clutch bag or bag that's on a bangle. When I go out, it's either you have a clutch bag which you've got to keep under your armpit, or I wear a sort of a shoulder bag, and that's a bit all over the place. So I just thought this was really great, and it means that I don't have to give these away or sell them, and they go. So as I'm sort of working through my plans and thinking about the things that I want to wear, I'm sort of building in all of these things that are going to go together. So I'm really excited about that, because I was really disappointed and I've never been able to wear them, and now I've got a really fabulous project that I want to make. And brings me on to my next fabric, which I've shown you before. I know what I want to do with this. It is a tea dress. It's my own pattern, but look, the lilac-y one goes with that as well, and even actually it's got green in it. Over in my sewing school, Tara's School of Dressmaking, on Patreon, we've been working in February on making pattern drafting bespoke skirt blocks. So I take you through the process, and the bonus project is a sort of like a development of that block for the higher tier patrons, who are just gorgeous. So I'm going to be making a sort of a 1940s-ish, just like a pattern adaptation for a skirt out of this, and it has a very exciting feature, but it's top secret, I can't tell you that. But this, putting this with this, has now made me even more excited for that. But that's over on Patreon, and there is a link below. I have this wool, green wool, which I've had for 25 years, something like that. I bought it in France. The label, which I've taken off and put in one of my scrappy sketchbooks, I paid in francs for this, and it was 15 francs at the time, and it's really beautiful, and I've just never known what to do with it. But because we've been working on skirts, that's something for next month, which is also top secret, but it is skirt related. The final thing that I want to make is something that I have been obsessing over for the last I don't know how long. It's going to be out of this fabric, which is a viscose satin from Missy Mop fabrics, and I've had this in my stash for about a year. I saw this on her website and had to have it. And I am going to be making a 1930s, early 40s zip-up house coat with really floofy sleeves. Over on my Patreon every month I do a tea with Tara, which is a talk about fashion history and culture, and sort of putting our projects that we're working on into context. January focus was zips and different techniques on how to insert zips into garments, but the talk was how zips have been used in fashion, and some of the visual references that I used were these vintage house coats, zip up house coats. And what I thought I would do, because I really love this pattern and it just works, was use the Liberty London Bella tea dress, and it's already got like a seam in the, there we go, a seam in the centre front. So I thought if I just carry that on up there, instead of cutting that on the fold, just add a seam allowance in line with this one, and then the zip can go in there. The slight thing is finding a zip that's gonna work, because those vintage metal and fabric zips were just so amazing, and you could get them in those long lengths, whereas metal tooth zips now are really heavy, so that won't work. And then it's sort of the choice of having the plastic tooth zip, but whether I can get those in really long lengths. So I've got to do a bit of research, sourcing of the perfect zip, but when I do, I will be a very happy bunny. I hope you've enjoyed sharing my early spring sewing plans with me. If you have, and you want to see how I do with them, and you haven't subscribed, then feel free to subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I so appreciate all your support, and that you take the time to spend the time with me in my little cottage by the sea. Let me know down below or to the side, because they've removed comments, what you think of these plans, and any suggestions for getting hold of those vintage zips, or as near to vintage zips as possible. I would so love to know, and I would be in your debt forever. I hope that wherever you are in the world, that you are keeping safe and well, and that you're getting to spend time sewing up some gorgeous things for yourself, and that you're looking forward to spring or autumn wherever you are in the world, and that by sewing up some beautiful things for yourself, you're making the world a better place, one stitch at a time. I will see you very soon, my lovelies, for another video all about my vintage inspired and DIY sewing. Take care, see you soon, bye.